podcast, Girls
and the City. You're welcomed by your two lovely co-hosts, me, Susanna, your direct and brutally honest friend who is always there for you.
And me, Elizabeth, who's taking the tech world by storm, but really is a hopeless romantic at heart. Each week, we will discuss the episode of Sex and the City, answer and reflect on the main questions while sharing personal experiences and giving it a modern twist. So, how are you?
Oh, long time that we've spoken to each other.
It's been a week.
Well, it's a long time at this point.
Sure.
I'm good. How are you?
I'm doing well. Still in Texas, haven't gotten back home yet.
Yeah, I thought you were there only for a week.
I am. It's still been a week. No, I decided to stay here for both weekends just to check out the area, see if I want to move here. I don't know. We'll see.
And?
It's nice. It's really warm, and I'm only saying this because back in DC it's snowing. But I also hear it's really hot in the summer, so I'm not sure. I gotta make a pros and cons list and outweigh it. But so far the vibes are really nice. The coffee shops are great, the food's good, people are nice. Yeah.
So would you say there's a big difference between south and
the south.
Northeast?
Well, I don't think you can really claim Austin to be the South. Again, it's it's a quirky place in the middle of the South, I think. Again, I have not really been to the rest of Texas, so it's hard to say. But I think Austin is kind of the fun area. I compared it to California the other day and someone got mad, but it feels like a California city within Texas. And I'm probably making a lot of exaggeration stereotypes here, but there are cowboy hats and cowboy boots, and that's really fun, but it doesn't have all the negative stereotypes.
I would like to see that.
It's really fun. I'll send you some pictures.
That's not something you see in Europe.
Definitely.
Unless you go to second-hand shops and vintage stores, which, by the way, I did with my cousin. She was visiting me for the weekend.
Fun. I love a vintage. I'm actually doing that today.
Amazing. There were a lot of cowboy boots that she was in love with, because she should have been a cowboy girl that is living in Texas, really.
Yeah.
And is riding horses every day. She was born in the wrong country.
There's always a chance to move. But it's actually really funny because I was talking to a friend of ours, actually, not going to name any names, but she'll know who she is. But she basically said that I romanticize the cowboy aesthetic, and there's a whole article on it. I'll probably try and link it. But it's basically everything that we see in the movies, but really apparently there's a darker side to the actual idea of cowboys. And it's not all just you see the cute outfits in the movies. So
it's practically a farm life, but maybe with more money because you have horses, right?
Yeah, but it's also almost like a pirate's life, right? It's they go and they take over. There's all these negative connotations of the taking over the lands of indigenous people and things like that. So I think there's a lot more history than we obviously see in the videos and cute movies that is just not talked about.
And no, to our listeners, this is not a podcast about talking about culture of US.
We do digress. We're also usually our podcast is talking about major cities and metropolitan areas. Austin is actually on the list. It's the 11th largest city in America, but I'm not sure it's very Sex
really?
City vibe.
I would say it will be higher than 11.
Really? Oh,
yes.
I think maybe later on, because a lot of people are moving here, but so far it does not feel like a huge city. Compared to New York, for example, it feels like a small up-and-coming city.
What's the population?
I have no clue.
Right.
But we should chat about the podcast, but also fill me in on how you're doing. How are you settling?
So this has been officially my second week in London, and until today the weather was relatively good, which was nice. Very busy, as we both have actual jobs that we do during the week, because of course we are already making money and making living out of this.
Okay, the point is not to just make money off of this. This is just for
no, but it's almost we actually have to work because that's what supports us.
Employment insurance, I guess.
But no, it's been great. I am meeting a lot of friends, enjoying my place. The weather got a little bit worse as of today, and because it's England, it's gonna stay like that at least for a week. So I hope I will not get depressed because there is no sun. But I mean, it's before Christmas also. It's so beautiful in London before Christmas. Like the lights are amazing. Christmas markets everywhere.
I miss it.
Yeah. If you if you don't look at the prices aspect, it's great.
Who cares about the economy? My goodness.
So no, it's been like fun family weekend actually. So my cousin was visiting me, but then my other cousin, who is the brother of the cousin that was visiting me, he is a pilot, and he randomly was stationed in London yesterday.
Nice.
So we just all met, went for a burger and a drink, and it was very cute.
That's such a nice London vibe.
Very much so, yeah.
I miss it.
How is your romantic life? You don't have to give us details.
It's in progress. We're working on it. I honestly like this week's kind of crazy because I realized I was like, I'm so into my job. Love my job, not gonna lie. But I'm also like day and night. I was like waking up super early. Like we had a lot of in-person meetings, and for listeners, I work fully remotely except for these times of the year where we all like gather for a week and work together, and it's like, I'm not kidding, it's 24/7. But it's really fun because like in the mornings we all have breakfast together, we chat like about random topics, and then we actually talk about like actual work stuff, and then in the evenings we all go out and have a dinner. But like during these dinners we discuss like crazy ideas and like what if we had all the resources in the world.
How big is your team again?
Well, my team specifically is actually not that big. It's only like 5 of us, but the other tangential teams that all came, there was like 70 of us. It was kind of cool.
Wow. Yeah, that's big to me, you know.
It was, I guess, but it was still really nice because I still know everyone, and even though like we don't always work directly, we probably will at some point in life. That was like my week essentially on the work side of things. I've really not had time to do like any of my fun cutesy dates and things like that. But
I like, by the way, how you like very, very nonchalantly diverged from my question and talked about your professional life.
Well, because that's literally like that's been my week.
No, that's fair.
No, my dating life right now is even though it's like nearly winter and apparently cuffing season is coming, it's like I can't say it's non-existent, but I'm not saying I'm settled in any kind of way. Yeah, that'll be me for the holiday season, going to a lot of Christmas markets with my friends. But I love my friends. They're my true lovers. Yeah.
Hi, everyone who is Elizabeth's true friend.
Love my friends. But yeah, how's yours? Because you just got back into London.
Oh, yeah.
I
mean, I was in last year I was kind of traveling around, so it wasn't really anything I could seriously actually start.
Pursue,
because I would stay in one place for like 2-3 months, and also I didn't really feel like it was a time and place. Now going back to London, I mean, I think I am struggling with the dating app overwhelming effect, because
people.
It's like it's impossible that you would be able to like have this selection in real life, right? Like it's just like the paradox of choice, and I don't want to sound as if I am like have crazy amount of choice, but if it's anything above 10, I think when you start to see different people, you kind of start to dehumanize
them,
the experience, and really just like look at it as like
a numbers game.
Yeah, exactly. And I really don't like it. So I think like my conclusion out of it is like I'm not responding or like doing almost anything. And then there are like some very interesting outsiders, you know, and edge cases that will pop up there and there, and I will be like, that's interesting. And then sometimes it continues to a date, and sometimes I actually stop responding in the meantime, or they stop responding in the meantime, because how much can you actually invest into a person that you have never met?
Exactly. And the thing is, like, you don't either like want to under invest in them because you don't want to underestimate the potential of it, but at the same time you don't want to over invest to get your hopes up so high that you're just like, this person that I've never met that I've been chatting to is just gonna be my like, you know, one and only. And that's why like I usually just like to get it off the chats and be like, hey, do you want to grab coffee if it's possible? Then rule out all the possibilities as soon as possible.
I have some dates listed for next week.
Okay,
but
exciting.
To be completely, you know, also honest here.
Yeah.
I am definitely focusing mostly on my work during the week, so it is almost as like a way to switch off, you know, and like do something a little bit different. Maybe just meet new people, and if you meet by any chance someone who you actually like, that is a great additional, you know, value. But I am not necessarily taking it as of like, oh my god, now, you know, I'm like putting all my eggs into this basket. It's more like I need to switch off, and it seems like it's an interesting person. Let's at least meet, because listening to also different people and what they do and like different perspectives, it's already a fascinating thing for me.
Totally.
And yeah, I do enjoy just like the initial, you know, first time that you talk to people that somehow you matched already, so there are some things you have in common. And that's pretty much where it is, I think.
I
will tell you.
Don't have to put pressure on it.
Yeah, exactly. It's what it is. But enough
Let's dive in.
Yapping.
You ready?
Only 13 minutes and 39 seconds.
Nice.
Shall we open the next topic of Sex and the City?
Yeah. I mean, today we're talking about episode 4. The name is The Valley of 20-something Guys. I'll give the brief overview. So in this episode, number 4, we're talking about 20-something guys, which essentially started with a brief overview of Carrie and Big always just bumping into each other. I have a lot of questions of like, how often can you actually bump into your crush in a city that big? But hey, we love a little romantic starter. And then essentially, eventually they decide that they're gonna find an actual time and place to meet. And it happens to be at this new hot club that obviously Samantha's managing the PR for. What an icon. And essentially, Carrie is there with her friends waiting on Big to show up. It's around 10:30 that they agree to meet. She gets a message from him. I think it's like a voicemail message saying that either he's going to be late or he's not going to be able to make it. And then she has Miranda listen to it, not really being sure if like it's a serious date or they're just hanging out as friends. So that's an interesting point as well. But then because they realize that Big may or may not show up, they kind of start like browsing around the club, seeing like who they can hang out with. And that's when we dive into the topic of dating younger guys. So it's always like very interesting. And then basically, we go through the question of, are younger guys the new designer drug? Specifically guys in their 20s, because I believe the girls are in their 30s in the show. So we decided to dive into that topic. And then Carrie also mentions like Big actually does end up showing up just late. And her point about him was like, you could also date guys in their 40s, but they're a little bit more tricky and complicated. Referring to the 20-something-year-old guys, which are a little more carefree and a little easier. Then what else happens? I'm trying to think.
Charlotte?
Oh yeah, of course. And then Charlotte brings a guy with her that apparently has the big 3, which are going to be looks, manners, and money. So we'll discuss that if that's really the big 3. And then we also talk about how, Carrie essentially ends up making out with a 20-something-year-old guy because Big is unavailable. And they go to a actual like 20-something bar, or that's what they describe it as. And in this bar, they just basically are able to capture the stereotypes of the different types of guys that appear at bars. And yeah, Carrie makes a point that everyone is in their 20s, and Samantha's like, yeah, and so are we. Like, go enjoy it, which is also pretty iconic of her. And yeah, and there's Charlotte.
Samantha.
Yeah, we love Samantha. And then there's Charlotte, who's still like dating this guy. And then when Carrie eventually actually gets invited out on a date with Big, she's on her way, but Charlotte calls and she's like, I have this question. And then basically she's having a dilemma about this guy that she's seeing. We'll dive into that into a minute as well. But they all get into the cab. They start discussing whether, you know, Charlotte should pursue with this guy or not.
Should give it up or not.
Which is going to be interesting. Yeah, and then essentially we kind of go on to the comparison of like our younger guys essentially like an addiction. And we have a lot of comparisons to drugs, which is interesting.
We definitely see a lot of interesting dynamics intertwined in this episode. I think it's also cool as an episode because Carrie is a little bit of a badass in this episode towards Mr. Big, which I think actually has the effect of him being interested in her more, which kind of just proves the toxicity a little bit of their relationship. But
their dynamic.
Yeah, I think like Carrie is rather the one that has lower argon in this relationship. But in this episode, I think it's one of the few where she kind of just leaves the situation and being like, yeah, do whatever you want. I'm out. Enjoy your evening. And I want to actually talk about it as well because I think like here in this episode, there are basically two really, really clear signs if you are in a relationship where like I probably would walk out if the guy would do this to me.
Is it that when he has his friend join them on the date?
So the first one is you actually agree to have a date, or as he called it, a thing, right?
Well, I don't know if the first one was really a date because we weren't super sure.
No, but it starts with the episode of they keep bumping into each other until they organize to bump into each other on purpose.
But they could be like, it could be friendly, right?
I mean, it's not explained, but like, okay, like the first time, you know, like maybe he really was busy. I mean, it was nothing official, so he kind of appears just to tell her that he's leaving. But the second time, imagine that you actually schedule a proper date, and the date will bring his friend.
Well, I think he brought him, and not to be like his advocate, but he brought him because he was like a friend in distress. So like in this case, he would have either called Carrie, be like, hey, my friend's suffering, I'm going to have to cancel this date, or bring him along. I don't know which one would have made her more upset.
Like imagine if you're really interested in someone and you are actually, you know, want to or like see a potential and you're going for a date with this person and like your friend would call you. I don't think they were necessarily like super close friends because we also never hear or see him, I think, again, or I don't know, wasn't a big
Well, we don't really know if Mr. Big even has friends.
Yeah, exactly. But like it almost like if I wasn't that into the person, I would do this. But if I would really be in a person and I would be serious or seriously interested, I would never do this.
But I think that's the point. Like, I think right now she's into him, but he's still unsure. Like, again, this is a random girl that he's met. Like,
and exactly, that's my point. This would be a clear sign to me that this is not the relationship I want to pursue further because there is clearly a difference in terms of how much he's interested. And I think from like my observation, if the guy isn't interested in you, especially at the beginning, a lot, it's not going to work out.
But I think we're also making the assumption that Carrie right now to this day, like, is just ready to get down and married. I don't think she is. I think she's also like ready to go have fun and date this cool guy, even if it doesn't lead to the altar.
I mean, I think that yeah, you get a point. But also, I'm just talking about, imagine you are having a first date with someone that you're
Yeah.
excited to go, and this person brings a friend,
Oh yeah, no, I'd
basically.
hate it totally.
Exactly. And like, and I would never do that if I'm actually really like curious in that person. I would do this if I wouldn't
Well,
care.
you say that, though I've
So
gone on a
if
double
this,
date with my friend before. Like, she brought me to her date, which was hilarious.
but that was a double date, or you were the third wheel?
No, like basically, I don't know. She wanted me to come along with her.
Interesting. But I mean, like, was it the first day? Like they never
Yeah, it
seen
was the first time
before
they were meeting. It was
each
a
other?
brunch. It was really funny. He bought both of us brunch.
Okay, but
So
this,
sweet.
I think that's slightly different again because Carrie and Big basically they knew each other already. It wasn't like they were complete strangers. So like I get the
Totally.
point that like your friend wanted you to come because she also didn't really know who she's meeting.
Yeah.
But they knew each other already. It was almost like, okay, we kind of feel this chemistry. There has been flirting going on between in the previous episodes, and this is
Right.
like a first official thing. I don't know. Like for me, like I was thinking about it. It's like if this is the type of like, background story I have with someone, and then we actually agree on a first official day in like a nice restaurant, and they would bring a friend, I would be like, this is not gonna end well, and probably
No, that's
call
fair.
it. Yeah. All right, but I think there is like a more this was one of the areas that it was interesting to touch upon, but I think like there are bigger questions that we should discuss. And do you want to start or shall I start?
I mean, I can kind of intro us into it in terms of like the thing that really sparked my interest of like, and I don't know if we can make the exact comparison because again, we're not 30. There's not like a 10-year age gap, but even to me, like, I'm what, 26, dating someone even that's like, I don't know, 23, 22. I was like, oh my God, they're like a teenager. Even though they're not, right? And so like there is still that like understanding. And again, it's partially because people are just in different parts of their lives. So I think like their outlook on life is slightly different. Whereas like I'm like, I have a job, I've like got a dog that I take care of, and like somewhat of like level of responsibility that I manage within my life. Whereas when you're 20 something, you're just starting out in the world, you're ready to go have fun. In the US, you're also just like starting to drink for the first time as well. So there is like
Well,
that gap.
you're also still studying, right? More or less, or like just graduated.
You're just graduated. You're just like, yeah, out into the real world. And so I think, yeah, it's interesting that Carrie and even Miranda with Skipper are like seeing these guys and not necessarily looking down upon them, but they're like, they're definitely perceiving the experience as like this is a one-off like type like situationship in the sense of like, yeah, we're gonna go out and have fun. But then Carrie also uses it as a backfall. Like, so when that date does not work out with Big, she goes back to that bar and makes out with that guy again, and she ends up going home with him. So it's like, it is kind of like falling back on a drug addiction, I guess. So yeah, what's your thought on that?
It's the second best thing to do, right?
Is it?
She literally says, I think when that date with Big happened, where he basically brought a friend.
Who got divorced?
Yes, who got divorced and was in not great mental state.
Yeah.
She literally says while walking in to this club that she needed to take the edge off to make feel herself better.
Yeah.
But like she used the phrase take the edge off. So basically she knew she needed to just like have fun and, switch off her mind, because otherwise she would probably overthink and yeah, maybe be a little bit sad about what happened. And I think already if you're going with this mindset to see a guy, it's pretty clear that you're not really being serious about it, which is fine.
Yeah, and I don't think he minded. It's not like he was like,
Exactly.
oh my gosh, like, we're gonna get
But
married.
but I feel like usually you have the tendency to look upon younger people with this mindset, but
Interesting.
it's just, I mean, if I think about, okay, so she was in her 30s, right? And he was probably like mid 20s. So let's say like I would be dating someone who is in their early 20s, like 22. Of course, I would not think about this like in a serious way, and it would be mostly like a fling where I would have fun.
Right.
So, and I think that's also what's happening here, where she's just like, oh, I just need to like think of something else and have fun. So let me just go and see Sam, and yeah, eventually sleep with him to realize that this is definitely not the life I want. And she also uses this interesting comparison: outgrowing the man of my past, but not growing fully yet to man of my future.
Yeah.
Do you think that's a thing actually?
I mean, I think in this sense, she means like the man of my future, like, yeah, someone that she would be ready to settle down with, but not wanting to let go of that fun, like, careless experience of it just really, yeah, being like a one night stand, right? It's like because the man of the future, like, that's not going to be what she, I guess, foresees for herself.
Yeah, I understand it as outgrowing the men of my past, who are these men who still live in shared apartments, are messy and kind of young and don't have things together, versus
Yeah.
men of my future who are basically a representation of that is Mr. Big. Everything put together. She's almost like idealizing him a little bit too much, and
Well, she doesn't know
feeling
him, so I mean, gotta give him the
yeah,
benefit
exactly.
of the doubt.
And she's feeling that she's not yet ready for him, which I think, again, now we are really, really analyzing Carrie's relationship, or I am, but I think if the relationship is good for you and healthy, you should never feel this way at the beginning. Like, she already feels at the beginning that she's not ready yet for this relationship because he's not giving her the security she's looking for. I don't think you need to like grow into that. Like if you meet the right person, because you feel secure from day one.
I don't know if it's just about the security though. I think it's also like a lifestyle thing because in her eyes, he represents
For
this,
sure, it's
yeah,
a
like
lifestyle.
a dude in finance who's like got this nice apartment, has his life together, has a driver. He's like 10 years older than her, right? So she's kind of looking up to him, being like, yeah, this is probably where I would see myself being settled and like,
But do you
happy with
think?
my life. But she's
Do
also
you
like,
think?
yeah.
Oh, sorry, finish.
No, I'm just saying, like, she right now, like, lives a pretty fun, chaotic lifestyle where she just, writes a column, has her apartment, goes out with her friends. Like, also I mean, we talked about her shopping habits, but they're quite careless. It's like she's investing more in her shoes than she is in, like, I don't know, getting a new apartment or something like that, or investing in her life further than. So, like, she's kind of living in this middle state of just enjoying her life rather than, like, investing in a future that she'll, like, I don't know, have a family or something if that's what she wants.
True. But do you think that's what she means by that she's not fully grown into that role? Is that your understanding? That she
That's
still
how
wants-
I interpreted it, yeah.
Okay, because I feel like she's basically the moment Big would start to be serious with her and like start to make steps, she would go for it. Like the only reason why she's not doing it is because he's not letting her.
I don't know if I'd go that far. I don't think he has that much power over her. Like, I think she's interested in him, but I don't think, like, she decides what she's going to do with her life based on him. Like, again, they're not, like, even really into each other in each other's lives because they just randomly bump into each other on the street. Okay? It's not like
I
they have
don't
a
know.
constant line of communication.
I think she's already quite obsessed. I mean, like the beginning of the episode shows it that she is overthinking what he meant by the message on the phone.
But I don't know if that means she's obsessed. I just genuinely think he's sending her mixed messages, not like stating his intentions clearly. And she's like, is this going to be something that I should take seriously? Or is this going to be just like another guy that's like being flaky?
I mean, this is fun because I think we have slightly different understanding, which is always refreshing.
Fair. Yeah.
I see your point. I do think though that what she feels like she doesn't feel ready, not because of her own doing, but because he's not giving the right environment or creating the right environment for her to feel that it's good or like the right thing. He's kind of keeping her on her toes.
Mm-hmm.
And
Totally.
I mean that's gonna be the theme of their whole relationship. But he's doing this already from the beginning. And I mean, you know, I've had relationships, and it would never be good if this would be the type of feeling I would have at the beginning. Like, it would always feel very good at the beginning, that if the relationship would actually work out, that you want to spend time with each other. I mean, of course you're busy, of course also if you're in your 40s. I have never dated someone in their 40s.
Not yet.
So not yet. It was always young guys who, you know, haven't had probably like wife. Mr. Brick had been married before, has been married before. So like it's different, but I think it still applies. If you want to be with the person, like it kind of just goes naturally. They want to be with you. They try to find as many options and possibilities to meet you. And if they're kind of unsure, it's almost like what Miranda said in the car when there's this great scene of
Discussion.
all of four of them sitting in the car discussing Charlotte's problem, which we will dive into in a little bit. And she's asking her, are you dating him? Like, how much are you into him? Are you dating him just to wait for someone else to come along? Or are you dating him to marry him and move to East Hampton?
Yeah.
And I think, you know, that's the differentiation that I mean. Like, at the beginning, especially men, they know pretty much from the beginning.
Interesting.
And I have confirmation of this by just yesterday when we talked with my cousin. We talked slightly about actually situationships and flings. And this is funny. And I asked him, like, do the guys know from like a beginning? And he's like, yeah, pretty much, yes. Like, if you know this is just gonna be like for sex, it's like very rarely it will change into something else. And if it's something like you are kind of serious, it's also pretty much from the beginning.
Interesting. I mean, I kind of get that in a sense, but I think it also depends on like how you guys met, because I've also like seen friendships grow into like relationships, and obviously like the intention when they met was
That's
like,
a different thing.
Yeah, I guess so.
But then I think you don't think about that person first romantically. Whereas fling is like, I think that sexual part is there from very early on.
Well, that's I think where we want to discuss the difference between a situationship and a fling, because I think to me, at least the way I see it, is like a fling is like, I've had a fling where it could have been a relationship, but because of like external factors, like, well, my common one is I move a lot. And even though I started like a relationship that could have really like flourished into something, I happened to be moving. So neither one of us wanted to do a long distance thing. So we just kind of agreed that, we're just going to make the most of it. It's going to be what it is. But essentially a fling to me is like a short-term relationship. Like it's a short-lived one. And then a situationship is like, a confusion of chaotic feelings of, there is attraction you think that it should work out into a relationship, but one of the two parties is not wanting or willing it to be one, right? So it's just like a pass-through state of like, you're nice to have around, but I don't see this going anywhere, and then just carries on beyond like a one-night stand, right?
So I actually asked ChatGPT what's the difference.
Our fellow friend. Our producer.
And he said like they share some similarities, but there are differences. Fling is typically short-term and often impulsive, focuses primarily physical or based on a fleeting emotional connection. Commitment, there are no expectations of emotional investment or future planning, and it's often recognized by both parties as a temporary connection, usually with clear boundaries. Situationship can be short or extended, over a longer period, and there is a mix of emotional and physical connection, but undefined in terms of relationship status. Commitment is ambiguous. There might be emotional involvement, but without the clarity of being official. It often lacks clear communication about intentions, leading to uncertainty or frustration for one or both parties.
That sounded messy.
That sounds like fleeing is a better thing.
Yeah, no, it also sounds nicer, right? It's like, but yeah, would you agree with that statement then?
Yes, I do think that fleeing is pretty much just like one off or like shortened thing, which is purely probably physical, and it's probably understood by both parties. I imagine you don't do really dates, you don't like involve the person beyond.
I mean, you can.
Yeah, I mean,
There are
but I
no
think
rules.
that is kind of falling then a little bit into a gray area already for me.
Yeah.
Because if you start to like hang out with that person and like getting to know them, I think it can very easily move into a situationship, because that's how you.
No, but I think the difference is it's clearly communicated, right? Because again, like the boundaries are set, right? You can still go on dates and have a fun time just because you enjoy being with a person, right? Again,
So
it's like the
but what-
expectations are different.
So you would say like the moment you communicate clearly, that would be a fling, even if it lasts for like months or years,
Yeah.
because that happens, right? Like
It's
I
kind
think
of like, well, I mean, what is the
There are
difference
a lot
between a
of-
fling and a relationship? Because like at the end of the day, it's like to me, a fling has an expiration date. That sounds horrible, but like no, it's like you
No,
both
I get
mutually
what you
agree
mean.
that like this is like not something that you're actually going to pursue long term. So
Okay,
you
and
kind of
that's-
like define an exit criteria.
That's what I make like a highlight. You both agreed, because I think that's what fling is versus
Yes.
situationship is.
Correct.
One person or one party clarify their intentions, usually is the one who is probably like more detached and does like has more say in the relationship, and they are usually the ones who say at the beginning, I am not looking for like a real committed relationship. But
Or you can say what you're
they
looking
don't
for,
really-
right? We can define it.
there is definitely part of the series where Samantha is actually in this position. She is dating a guy, and they are actually dating for some time. But I
Yeah.
think it's always clear to her that it's not like something that will define the whole life. That it's just like in the moment, and she's enjoying until she's not anymore.
Yeah.
And the older they are, the more complex I
baggage
think
that-
it
well,
may
that's-
happen.
Well, exactly what Carrie said. It's like the guys in their 40s are more tricky and complicated. But like,
Yeah.
again, she still, I think, has a greater preference for that, right? Because, and I think
And
you were starting
as,
to like
as
hint at
Samantha
it.
say, you will always be younger. You know,
Exactly,
There's this funny
exactly.
scene. There's this funny scene with wrinkles on her neck.
Oh God, yeah. Well, that's the thing is like they were interviewing the guys and the benefits of dating older women, and they're like, well, they're more grateful. They know exactly what they want, what they need. Like they're a lot more transparent, direct, and clear. And someone said that, yeah, it reminds them of their mom. And then there was that scene with Samantha and the younger guy. I was like, oh, it's so cute when you lie on your back because you can really see your cute little wrinkles. And Samantha literally, I think, immediately got the ick. She's like, I'm
I
done.
mean, no woman wants to hear that. Like, let's just say it as it is.
Yeah, it's just kind of funny though.
But you know, like when you brought this up, I think that this applies to both genders though. Like you will always have this kind of interesting power dynamics of if there is, and I don't really know how to define significant, but let's say like significant age gap, like let's say 5+ years difference.
Sure.
Where the older one will be looked upon as that person that has it all put together and is more like dominant and kind of perceived as a caretaker, and the younger one being perceived more like fun and bringing back, you know, the joy
Yeah.
and kind of wanting to be taken care of. And as the guy in the video said, oh, it reminds me my mom, I think the same goes the opposite, right? Like women would date older men because it kind of gives them this daddy feeling that they're being taken care of.
Or like a protector, you know? I don't know if we go as far as Freudian ideas here, but like, yeah, I think it just represents someone that can like protect them and provide for them.
Exactly. And I think we can also see this in the episode when Carrie is helping Sam pick a shirt. And
Yeah.
I really like, when I saw this episode, I was like, is she being his mom?
Essentially, I think the last
Yeah.
person that helped him shopping was his mother.
Exactly. So like, is like, you know, like, are we looking for like, is this the dynamic that basically always happens if there is like age difference, that the older is looking for fun, but usually probably not super serious, whereas the younger is looking for like a caretaker, maybe someone who brings some structure in their life, and can often be more attached to that person.
Maybe, potentially. Yeah. But the other thing is like what Miranda brought up, she's like kind of in the middle. She's like, well, are you seeing any available men in their 30s? Like,
Yes.
and that was kind of the middle ground, right? Because she was like saying, okay, the young ones are too young, the old ones are too complicated and tricky and have too much baggage. But then people around their age are just, you can't find them.
That was actually something I wanted to ask you, because I think there's a big difference between what the 30s, the people in their 30s life look like today, especially in big cities, and how it looked like in like 90s, early 2000s. Because
Okay.
I think, or like at least from my understanding of the circles they are usually moving around, it's probably a lot of them have families around the 30s, and that's why it's very difficult to find men who are single.
Yeah, no, for sure. And I think they do. And there is like, even still to this day, there's Instagram and TikTok videos about like, I'm waiting for the divorces to hit, right? Because people
Yeah.
got married young. And it's true. Like, I've had some friends who got married at like 23, 24. And I was like, you're a child bride. And to that degree, it's like, yeah, people who've kind of stayed single are waiting for the second lap to hit, essentially.
But I think like our generation, it's like we are starting with everything later than what we see in the 90s and 2000s, because economic situation, blah blah blah. Like everyone is just starting families later now. So I think, you know, there are also more single men in their 30s as a result of it.
Yes and no. I don't know if people are necessarily starting families, but people are still, I think, well, we probably should also accept the fact that we have a bias of our own circle, which again, we come from a group of people that's highly educated, both have master's degrees. That's how we met. And like, because people who are more academic, more like career driven, they dedicate much more of their time and attention to that to progress in their career. So obviously, yeah, within our circle, people are going to get married and start building families later on. Whereas
You
like,
have this in big cities. Like I think New York was more or less.
yeah, but I
There
still
were
think that people
career-driven
who are working, like people without college education, who are working, let's say, in service or like any other like jobs that don't require like, it's essentially mostly like white collar, like non white collar jobs or blue collar jobs. People are still getting married younger and starting families, just because I think like it could be an economic thing that yeah, they do need the dual income, but I still think within the different part of the population is still the norm to get married younger. But
True.
since we are talking about like the Carries and Samanthas and
Exactly.
Mirandas and Charlottes,
They are more the type of people that would date is more similar to our circles than what it is.
true. Yeah. So I don't really know, but I also like they still go out to bars and everything else and meet people that are I think are still 30 and young. I just don't think, maybe they are just pickier. They wouldn't date someone that's typical because again, going back to last episodes, it was a perfectly eligible guy who was like 30,
Right.
had a job, had his apartment, was like
But he was
ready
too
to settle
much.
down, but he was too much all at once. And yeah, I think they're just eligible, they're there, but they're just not who they want.
Which
Just fair.
actually brings me to another interesting discussion point of this episode. and that is, what are your big threes? So we see a very, very early on in the episode that Charlotte's big three are looks, manners, and money.
Yeah. I would say mine are different. And mine are, I think, more
And
of like, no.
is it even a thing? Like, do you think there is a thing like big threes, or is it actually more complex?
I don't know if it can dwindle down to three. I've definitely made a little mind map of like what I'm looking for, looking for in a partner. And there is a list, but it's definitely not three. It's like probably 10 items.
Yeah, yeah.
But yeah, because for me, like, at least the things that I think make up a good relationship, and I stole this from one of our friends, and I'm gonna butcher this, but like, she said something along the lines of like, you have to have the timing right. By timing, she means like be in the same place in life and also like be moving towards a similar goal. That's point one. Then point two is going to be chemistry. So like, are you genuinely like on a very primitive level attracted to each other? And then the last part is values. Like, at your core, do you believe in the same things? And I kind of agree with that, and I think that's like a very good way to put it, and it makes up the three.
No, actually, that is great summary. I think if you hit all three of them, the chances that you will stay together are very high.
Yeah.
I would also say that to some degree, like, living compatibility plays a role. How much you are compatible versus not when you actually live with the person at home.
Totally. Or travel with them, right? Because we talked about that too.
Yes. Yeah. So I would kind of add that as probably a big variable that also plays a role. Not sure if, I think like these three are main ones, and then this is more like, okay, once the three are checked, this four.
Yeah, how do you test it out in production?
Exactly.
Yeah, I think that kind of sums it up. What else have we not
Are we
covered?
going to touch on Charlotte's issue?
Oh my god, yeah, now that I've been avoiding that topic. Well,
Yeah, I know.
yeah, so Charlotte, again, going back to this, she met a guy who had all her three, so looks, manners, and money. And I think, so they went on their first date, and then for their second date, he basically was like, can we do anal? And I was like, all right, very direct. And so, yeah, she basically, what happened in the show, she just had this dilemma and she needed to chat to Carrie about it, but Carrie was kind of busy. So they all jumped into a cab and started discussing it. And yeah,
which
what
is
did you take away
a
from the conversation?
great scene. I really like the scene.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Sorry, what was the question? What did I?
No, I was just saying, like, what were your main takeaways about that whole situation?
Who
do you side with?
Yeah, I mean, honestly, I think Carrie actually did not express really her opinion. She was more like a mediator.
Busy.
Yeah, she was already. You're already seeing a slight hints of her slightly dodging her friends because of Mr. Big, but Miranda was basically like, well, how much are you into him? Because if you go for it, it's basically you need to be really, really serious. Samantha is just being Samantha. I mean, like, we don't even have to probably really say what her stand was. And of course, Charlotte is very, very conservative and saying, I don't want to do that. So what's my stand? Like,
I think, like,
on this particular activity?
No, I'm just like, and just kind of their interpretation of it as well as like...
I mean, I don't think it's a power thing. I think like Miranda was putting a little bit too much
emphasis on it.
Like the moment you give it up, basically he will be in, like, it's like you will be in power or he will be in power depending on, I don't know even what variables. I don't agree with that. I think it's just like depends like what you like really at the end of the day when it comes to like bed, and I think there are just some people who enjoy it versus there are some people who don't. And I think it's kind of like the combination of all of their opinions together would map probably the best answer to that. That it's really not one black or white answer. That it depends really on like specific man, specific situation, specific person, like how much you feel about that act, right, with yourself,
Totally.
and like how much you want to compromise on pushing your sexual limits for that specific person, versus not. And
Yeah,
I think
yeah.
that can also differ per partner, that you would be willing to do it with some, but not willing to do it with others.
And I totally agree. And I think like the fact that it's like a second date and like one, she doesn't know this guy very well. She went on one date with him and they haven't even spent the first night together. And like the fact that this is what's coming out as like a precursor to that is kind of wild. I agree with Charlotte on this one. But at the same time, she likes the guy. She doesn't want to like scare him off just because, you know, she's not like, let's say, sexually adventurous in that sense. But at the same time, I think it is extremely important to, like, as she did, kind of like state her boundaries, being like, I really like you. I don't want to screw this up, but I'm not comfortable with this.
Yeah.
And she's like, I hope you're not upset. And I don't think he was.
No, I mean, like, I think for him it was purely about sex. He was like, okay, can we just do it normal way? Which,
Yeah.
very,
Yeah. But then also,
very-
like, I hate that Charlotte ends up in these situations because going back to one of the other episodes, remember she like went to the opera with the guy and everything else, and like they had such a nice night, and then she was trying to like play it off all cool, being like, oh, I don't want to sleep with you on the first date, and then he gets in the cab with her and he's like, well, I need to sleep with someone tonight, and he ends up with a Samantha, which is like,
yeah.
I
Yeah,
mean,
but that was
good on the
very, like,
writers.
I was thinking about it. Like, imagine that you are like interested in a guy and like he would end up sleeping with your friend. Like, would you do that as a friend? Because, I mean,
Well, she didn't know.
exactly. But like Samantha knew who the guy is.
No, no, no. I don't think she knew that she went. No, sorry. I don't think Samantha knew that Charlotte went on a date with him prior because she only knew about a guy that she went to the opera with. She didn't know who specifically it was.
Oh, you think so?
Yeah, no. Otherwise, like, Samantha would have never done that. She didn't
Yeah.
know.
Because I think like I could see how Samantha would be able to do that still. I mean, she was very good friends throughout the episodes, but I also think she's so free in terms of sex that for her there would not be a problem to share partners. And I can totally see how.
Yeah, but
this
only if
logic-
Charlotte would have been okay with it. I think to her, still friendship with the girls is much more important. Like, I don't think she would have, like,
Yeah.
done that.
Yeah, but I mean, back to the actual initial question about like
Yeah.
this anal sex and you know
The power shift.
what was the right way to do it versus not. I think she did pretty well at the end.
Yeah, no, for sure, for
Charlotte.
sure. Like, again, it's different for everyone, and no one's like to be judged if like they want to take the Samantha route. Okay, great, have fun. But at the same time, staying true who you are and like what you are comfortable and not comfortable with, like that should be expressed either way.
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah, I think that sums it up. Is there anything else that we didn't mention? I mean, I guess the whole like comparison to men being the inexplicable
Well, I think we
drug.
should. Yeah, we should probably actually say the answer to the questions that Carrie asked.
Yes. So again, back to the question is, are men in their 20s the new designer drug? What do you think?
Well, according to Carrie, maybe all men are like a drug. Sometimes they take you down and sometimes they get you high. As she's walking away, being giving boss energy, as she helped to solve a Mr. Big's crossword puzzle. I think it's slightly toxic, I would say, but I also think that it's nicely
It's flirty.
I think, yeah, it's like giving the depth, you know, like if you care for something where you actually, if you are interested in building something genuine, you are always running into being basically hurt. I wouldn't want to describe necessarily it to a drug because drug has quite negative connotation. But I do see the point that, you know, being like totally simple, there are moments where the partner, even if it's a man or a woman, they will make your life amazing, great, and you will have amazing, you know, mood and feeling happy, and then there will be times where they will be the reason for your depression or sadness.
Totally, and I think like I have to dig up the research maybe for the next episode, but I think that actually does release the same chemicals in our brain, like whenever we feel in love or excited to see someone or get the butterflies in our stomach, to a point that yeah, if there is like a relationship and there's a breakup, it's the same chemical as like a drug withdrawal, because we've kind of integrated it into our lifestyles and our day to day, and like just having that piece of it ripped out, like causes a lot of pain. And that's usually when, during breakups, people are like, try to fill time with hobbies, try to spend time with your friends, and like re-fulfill that. So I think there are a lot of correlations. Just try not to hurt anyone's feelings while at it. But there are a lot of like similarities between like addictive substances and love, which is also like kind of spicy to me.
Or shopping issues,
Oh,
as we can see.
Yeah, I love the movie Confessions of a Shopaholic.
Yeah.
I'm guilty of it too, though.
But I think, like, you know, what I like is that she starts the episode with, is it only about men in their 20s? Like, is there something that makes them, like, super, almost, like, addictive? And then she kind of concludes, it's like, no, it's, like, all men, and they can either cause you happiness or misery. And, yeah, like, I don't think there's specific generation or age. It's just like any connection gives you,
you know?
Exactly, and any connection, human connection, will cause an emotional, to some
those
or
endorphins.
less extent.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, like some kind of response. Sometimes it's very small, but sometimes it can be really high, and I think that's the base.
Totally.
And also drugs will cause you emotional response. Rather do people than drugs.
Not to cry.
Jesus.
All right. Is there anything else you want to say before we wrap up? Add the hour mark.
Oh yes, yeah, an hour mark. I think it's like maybe just like a small intro into our next episode, which I'm really, really looking forward to because it focuses on the power of female sex. That's really what the episode is called. And I think it will talk a little bit deeper on the sexuality and charisma that women have and use to seduce men, and to what extent it's acceptable versus not.
Very exciting.
To get your things.
That should be a good one.
Yeah, it will be definitely an interesting one. We continue again in the perspective of women kind of leading the direction of
taking
where
charge.
Things can go, but maybe not. Maybe we'll actually learn that it's just perceived, but it's actually not true. Let's see.
Ton. Okay. Well,
all right.
Thanks for joining us today.
Thank
again,
you.
Girls
we
in the
had
City.
We had a lovely intro. I know you liked it. Thank you already.
We'll keep up the good work.
Yes, and we'll see you next week.
Sounds good.
Bye.